Yo, what's going on, guys? And ESPN's Sean Sharania has said that Al Horford has signed a multi-year deal with the Golden State Warriors. We'll break it down and then also discuss the corresponding moves that are allegedly going to happen that we previously discussed earlier in the offseason. Now, with Al Horford joining this team, it's going to be interesting. And I want to quote Keith Smith of Spot Rack, because he said the phrasing that Al Horford has committed to a multi-year deal with the Warriors still indicates that the Jonathan Kuminga situation needs to be resolved before the deal will be signed. Wednesday, October 1st, is the deadline for Kuminga to sign a qualifying offer. They can, of course, if they wanted to, delay the deadline and extend it. That hasn't seemed to be the case. Now, the Warriors will be able to offer Horford, both in terms of year and dollars, is dependent on how much Kuminga is signing for or the signing trade. As Horford is being signed with the mid-level exception. If it's the non-tax mid-level exception, that's a first apron hard cap. If it's a tax mid-level exception, that's a second apron hard cap. Shout out Keith Smith for that. And I assume Al Horford probably start, but this is going to be a guy who plays 20 minutes a night for them. And I like it. I mean, DeAnthony Milton, Seth Curry, Gary Payton II are the other guys who are allegedly signing, and I believe it's all for veteran minimum deals. I wonder if they'll have a player option on those, but we'll discuss that later in the video. What I think is, if we just discuss the lineup now, if you guys remember during the dynasty, they were at their best. I mean, Kevin Durant was when they were at their best, but without the KD, they were always a great team, center by committee, where they had different centers who could fit different needs. And I think they're going with that approach here. Al Horford, the veteran floor spacer, kind of playing that David West role, which I think was an underrated part of all those championships. Now, Steph Curry, Buddy Hield, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Al Horford, probably the starting lineup, right? Then you have Quinn Post, B-Pod, Moses Moody, either Jonathan Kuminga or Malik Monk or Dario Saric plus Devin Carter or somebody that they dump Malik Monk for. And then you come across, obviously, Trace Jackson Davis, who's kind of like their athletic center. Quinn Post being their three-point marksman. And Alex Tui and DeSantis, two wings forwards who I think can kind of be utility guys who can stretch the floor. Now, I wonder what's going to happen with Pat Spencer, but they might be moved on. I do think this signing foreshadows that the Kuminga situation is going to be resolved soon. So the rest of the video is going to be our previous video talking about the rest of the Warriors signings of Seth Curry, DeAnthony Milton, and Gary Payton II to the team with Al Horford, and regardless of what happens with Kuminga. Let me know your thoughts. Yo, what's going on, guys? And I just wanted to discuss the reports basically come from ESPN and The Athletic at this point that Al Horford, if he does not retire, will sign with the Golden State Warriors. For how much, I don't know. Will probably be at least the veteran minimum, obviously. Could be a bit more. And they'll also be signing DeAnthony Milton, who they had last year and looked great for them before injuring his knee. And, of course, bringing back Gary Payton II. This all has been basically held up due to their stalemate with Jonathan Kuminga, who's either going to return on the qualifying offer and have a no-trade clause and be able to be an unrestricted free agent next year, or on the deal of his choice or be signed and traded. Seemingly more and more he's going to do the qualifying offer route. And that's been the holdup here. So for this team currently, I think the biggest thing to understand is getting Gary Payton II here and returning, I would say. And same thing with De'Anthony Melton. Gives them 2 point of attack defenders, dogs who can play off ball and are able to be transition players and veterans who Mr. Steve Kerr can rely upon. Same thing, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Curry. Because at the end of the day, teams that have deep benches are the ones who are able to go deep into the playoffs, because either injuries, adjustments, whatever it may be, in the playoffs, they're able to make the moves that need to be done. So having Al Horford be your backup center, him or starting center, Quinn Post, Trace Jackson Davis, gives you a center by committee. And guess what? Golden State Warriors were at their best during the dynasty run when they went center by committee, like Maurice Spates, Ezeli, if I remember that correctly, as well as, who else? They had James Michael McAdoo, Andrew Bogut, and a few other guys during those years where they had Damian Jones was a guy at one point. So they've always been their best when they have multiple centers, athletic guy in Trace Jackson Davis, as well as Quinn Post being the floor spacer, Al Horford being another one, and then Draymond Green still the small ball option. They have Jimmy Butler, Buddy Hield, and the other thing is having Jimmy Butler, Mr. Gary Payton, De'Anthony Melton gives you 3 elite point of attack defenders, as well as Moses Moody, Key Santos, and B-Pod when they try are plus defenders still that they have on this team. And obviously, it's not like Curry is a turnstile. He can defend when he needs to. And everybody on this team can defend. So having that is huge. Plus, regardless of what Al Horford is at this point, is going to be able to be someone that can go ahead and be able to be a veteran who has championship experience and go ahead and help a team like Golden State if they need just locker room leadership, accountability, someone else to be like the old heads with Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler. Now, look, if we just look at what they did statistically, so having Al Horford be someone that last year averaged 9.6 rebounds, 2 assists, and it's not like they need him to be playing 30 minutes a night, but he did still shoot 36% from 3-on-5 attempts from deep, 42% on the field. Basically, besides 5 threes a game, he took like 2 layups a night. Then De'Anthony Melton, before the injuries occurred, he was someone that he's still 27 years old. Mr. Do Something. 10 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists last year's in those 6 games for the Golden State Warriors, 6 threes a night, and shooting 37%, almost 41% from the field. Someone who was able to also just be really good defensively, 1.5 steals in a career, 1.5 steals a night guy, 9 points, and someone who is a career 37% three-point shooter, where you just know he's efficient. And he's been someone who's been able before last year and his year with Philadelphia. He had played back-to-back 77 games with Memphis and the Sixers. And obviously, we all know Gary Payton II, the son of the glove, NBA champion. Yeah, he's 32 years old, and he assumed De'Anthony Melton and Gary Payton would be probably 1-year veteran minimum deals. I would assume the same thing with Al Horford. All of them just so they can, Al Horford would probably be a swan song the entire next year, regardless of how the season turns out. But with Mr. obviously Gary Payton and De'Anthony Melton would want to do this to rebuild his value, go into a situation where he's thrived already or knows what to do, while Gary Payton, he's just been there for a while. He left for a second, had, that whole injury thing with Portland, and seemingly he's someone that over the last few seasons, yeah, he's had injury problems, but he has shot 34% from 3 on 1.5 attempts a game the last 2 years, about 56% from the field in general, 3 rebounds, just over an assist a night, about a steal a game. He's someone who could be a pick and roll guard. He can guard all 5 positions. And as I mentioned, he's someone who can back up Buddy Hield, play with B-Pod, Moses Moody, just gets this bench deeper because you bring in DeAnthony Milton, regardless of Kuminga or whoever they get in a sign-in trade, just say it's one person they add. So besides their starting five, which will have Quinn Post in there and Green, Butler, Buddy Hield and Steph Curry be that starting lineup with Kuminga or whoever they have at the 6-man position. They had B-Pod, Moses Moody, who right there, that's 8 guys. You throw in 3 other dudes and Milton, Horford, and Gary Payton II. You're at 11 dudes before you even reach Guy Santos and Trace Jackson Davis, who we know can contribute. So that's 13 guys. And they still have Alex Dewey, who I think is way better than people need to give him credit. And I think that's just shows what has been being built here. So to me, that's the biggest thing. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think this Golden State Warriors team, which, as I mentioned, ESPN, The Athletic, and the Stein line, Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, have all reported that Milton Horford, obviously Horford, if he doesn't join the Warriors, the report is that he's just going to head off into the sunset. Now, I think he'll try one more time, because this team really could be one of the top teams in the West. Now, even if they get all these guys, and if Jonathan Kuminga comes back, or they do the sign-in trade where they'll get themselves Darius Saric and Devin Carter, or it's Malik Monk, or Nikola Vucevic, or whoever, Josh Giddey is the other report. So at this point, the Phoenix Suns offered, I think it was either Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards, or I believe Grayson Allen and whoever they would throw in that salary filler. So regardless of that, I think the team would need to stay healthy. And if they do, they are a top team. I mean, Curry's still playing at an unbelievable level. So is Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. So if they're all able to stay healthy, like they were last year, and then they got hurt and it all fell apart. So let me know what you guys think.